So thanks again, Kevin, for the intro. It's great to be here, and I know you all have been following with Kevin and his group for some time, so you appreciate what he's doing, but I think what Kevin's doing is awesome. And I say that from a number of reasons. I believe that we've got to use the environments that we live in more efficiently. We're living in way too big a places. When you pare down and get back to the basics, you realise that you can live very, very happily in what by Australian terms might be less than the average size, but it's more than enough to get by and to live it. And let's face it, our cities are growing and we need to be more efficient. The other reason I want to thank Kevin is, and well in fact, this is not tell Kevin this, but as a result of his consultation, and I did consult with him in the early days of my project, I was able to add in a self-contained media room in 2 of my units. I wanted to do it to 6 of the units, but we battled there and could only get it on 2. But those 2 units are adding probably about $80,000 to my bottom line for 2 units. So let's not tell Kevin that. But I'm very thankful for the inspiration he gave me to really look broader than just the standard type of townhouse, 3-bedroom, 2-car, that is being built in my area. So thank you, Kevin. So my speech today is feasibility mastery, and I came in, listened to Ken. A lot of what Ken was talking about, I'll be talking about as well. Because now, I'm sorry, my presentation is not in your notes, but you can get a copy of these if you want, or you can watch the Facebook Live video and get it real. But I have whacked my business card on the tables in front of you, so grab one of those. To me, the feasibility is really where it's at, and that's what I want to cover as we get talking here. So look, I appreciate your time, I appreciate the offer and the opportunity to come and speak here today, but I appreciate your time, I really do. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I also appreciate and value my time enormously. So hopefully what I can give you here is some decent information that you can take away and implement, and you'll come out thinking, yeah, that was a good use of my time. And what I want to do just to start is just go back on my background so you know that I've got a bit of substance to what I've done in the past. So I've been graduated as a civil engineer now for 29 years, would you believe? I mean, 29 years. But since then I've done a lot of stuff, and most of my time, apart from 2 years where I spent a couple of years investment banking, has all been in this field. And I've been at every different level, from sweeping the floor to working as a carpenter. I am a qualified carpenter. I'm a qualified builder. And as I said, I studied as a civil engineer, civil structural engineer, and I'm still what's called in Queensland, if you come across the term RPQ, that's Registered Professional Engineer in Queensland. So I'm one of those, I maintain that. And then I started a contracting company where I did piling work. And in the days when I started that was I sold that business 10 years ago, and I'd run for 10 years, so 20 years ago I got started in this. And I became an expert in Australia. It was an emerging form of foundation improvement for building construction. And I became an expert partly because I loved it, partly because I was the only engineer involved in that. Most of the guys involved in that were driving a backhoe one day, and then, hey presto, the next day they were a piling contractor, which always seemed a bit weird to me. But I was able to really cut a good niche, apply my expertise, and have some fantastic experiences and really create some awesome projects. And so I did I'll speak about that in a second, but we did a lot of work all over the world. And then I develop manage, as Kevin said. I consult to some large companies, and I've been doing property development now for a number of years and enjoy speaking at conferences like this. On a personal note, I've got 3 beautiful daughters, and I do things like Ironman triathlon and stuff like that. So I've got a few different aspects to me. So in terms of the construction contracting I've done, as I said, I ran that business for 10 years. I started it, sold it 10 years ago, and we did lots of projects around Australia. Most interesting job I did was outside of Australia, where I worked in China, and I was part of what was at the time, that was going back to about 2003 or something like that. At the time, it was the largest joint venture project that had ever happened in China at the time, and it was a petrochemical plant east of Shenzhen, and it was a joint venture between Shell and the China National Offshore Oil Corp, and that was an awesome experience. In 2011, who remembers the Brisbane floods? Anyone get badly affected in that? Yes. I was contracted there as a builder doing repair work for Suncorp, and had a lot of really interesting experiences there, and I wrote a book about that, as a matter of fact. The foreword of the book talks about my experiences, I guess, but the book itself is talking about how you put buildings back together when they've been affected by flood or wind or whatever. And you can go to my website and download that. That's free, so have a look at that if you wish. I've done some land subdivisions. Did another very interesting project a couple of years ago for Rio Tinto. Has anyone heard of the Argyle Diamonds? Yeah. Any ladies here, the Argyle Diamonds? Well, I trekked up there for 6 months and we built this fly-in, fly-out workers' camp. That was a fascinating project, and when we got on construction, we did 15,000 hours in 46 days on site in about 50-degree heat, and that's challenging conditions, but a very interesting project. What I have done and become getting better and better, that's the name of the game, isn't it? Whatever you do, get better and better. I've done a number of motor vehicle dealerships now for Toyota all over the country, and I'm currently doing this one here, which is up in Morayfield, just north of Brisbane, and we're almost finished that job as well. So it's exciting seeing that the owner's dream there come to fruition and finishing there. And so much so that, I know I can't mention the brand of vehicle manufacturer it is, I can't mention it, but it's a great feeling when I'm doing these projects. Well, they use me as a consultant for development management consulting. So what that means is that whenever their dealers in Australia have a project they have to do, or they're having their arm twisted where they've got to update their facility, they get me to help their dealers, and that normally results in about one project at a time I'm doing for them, and that's a great relationship. Done residential projects as a builder and developer, and this is Lux Annerley, which, as you know now, you'll be coming to see first cab off the rank on Sunday morning. So has anyone got a big night planned on Saturday night? Yeah. Yeah, everyone? Yeah. Everyone? Okay. Hands up, who's got a big night planned? Hands up, anyone else? The same, keep your hands up. Big nights, look at you all. Kevin, what is this group?
Well, I planned the big night.
Oh, you planned the big night, okay.
We've actually got a band playing here, David.
Oh, okay.
And we're giving them alcohol so we can really find out their story. and then subsequently they're going to, party and boogie.
Okay.
And then bleary-eyed catch the bus.
That's fantastic. Oh, well, you'll be bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, so you need to stop off at Macca's or somewhere for a couple of coffees on the way. And then you'll get to my site, which is exciting. You'll be the first people to come there after it's officially finished in terms of the contract. Yeah, so that's going to be exciting. I was there this morning, first up, and they're pouring concrete and guys running everywhere and a big push happening. So this is what the project looks like from the street. That's an internal render, would you believe? That's how good they can get these things now. It costs you about $1,000 to get one of those done. But in terms of your marketing, it's really helpful to have. A lot of people can't read plans. You guys might be able to, some of you in varying capacities. But to actually visualise what people are buying is essential until you've actually got the finished product built. So on Sunday, you all get the joy of getting in a great big bus, and Kevin's going to be driving the bus. He's up the front driving. Shut up, you kids! He'll be hurling abuse at you, and you'll be hurling abuse at him. And I've got a headache. Shut up, Kevin. After your Saturday night. So a little bit more about the Lux Annerley project. There is a specific website, and you can see the name there, luxannerley.com.au. If you go to that website and you wish, you can see down the bottom here, you can register for more information. So if you do that, that will enable you to then actually get some more information about that project. If that's relevant before you get there on Sunday or afterwards, then go and have a look at that. But one thing I would suggest you do and have a look at is that on these icons up here, further up the page, you can actually go in and download all the floor plans and the finishes schedule. You can have a look at the marketing information. You can even download the sales contract if that turns you on, and see how a sales contract is put together. I think that contract is probably about 60 pages or 80 pages long. So that's that. But also on the website, you'll see the image in the middle of the screen there is a video that was done. We did it again as a marketing piece about the Annerley suburb, all different features, interviews me. And then on the very right-hand side of the screen, go and have a look at that, because what that is a time-lapse video of the project. I was able to con the neighbour across the road to sticking a time-lapse camera up on their roof. And so since the original houses were in place, it takes 2 photos a day. And they're all stitched together, and you've seen those things before, 2 houses, demolished houses, bare block of dirt, and then these 2 buildings, or these 2 blocks of buildings just rising up out of the dirt. So yeah, have a look at that, it's interesting. And then when you register that, you'll go through this Facebook page of mine, and if you like that, we can keep in contact, okay? But the reason, as I mentioned before, over the past 8 months or so, I've been interviewing a whole bunch of different people involved in the project. So I interview the foreman of the job, I interview the project manager, one of the other very experienced guys who's been with them. Now these guys are gold. You may not have the chance, and may not have had up until this point in time, to meet these different people involved in the process of development and construction. But one of the reasons I love this field so much is that you've got earthy people. I mean, a builder doesn't gloss, glam his words up. You hear it as it is. And I love working with people where you know what's real, and this is what you consistently get in this industry. I interviewed the sales agent for the project. He talks about how much more difficult it is to sell pre-sales before the thing's completed, as opposed to when it is completed. That's not for everyone. Certain agents love that, and some will stay away from it completely. I talked to the bank's quantity surveyor. He's there basically to probably keeps me honest, but he keeps the builder honest as well. The banks don't like departing with their money if you actually haven't done the work you reckon you've done. I talked to my mortgage broker, and I even talked to Jack. Where's Jack? There's Jack. Interviewed Jack there when he came and saw the job with me. I'm interviewing Suzanne just this week, who's a passive, an investor who earns her income just off passive projects she's developed and things she's done over the years. So just a whole range of different people. And I think that's worth a lot. And it's there. Just jump on and you can get the benefit of those people's experience. And then, as I mentioned before, you can go to that website, my website, DTK, download the book. And there's also this, I wrote this actually for Kevin's conference last year, how to get a DA site under contract in less than 30 minutes. That's all about relationships. If you set your relationships up, and it's just, they're all sitting there, and it's a little bit like a light switch. If you've got power turned on, then as soon as you come along and flick that light switch, then it all happens. But if you haven't got power turned on, you haven't got all those relationships set up, and you need something done quickly, then you might be stuck. And let's be honest, most of what we do is about the networks and relationships we develop. So anyway, back onto feasibility mastery. To me, development, and any project where you're intending to make a profit, any project, not just property, but anything you're going to do where you're intending to make a profit or increase wealth, then feasibility, or you might call it cash flow, you might call it budget, that is an essential step, and it occurs at the start. So to me, it's everything. If you haven't got that stuff right, then you haven't even got to start. You can't even get on the starting blocks. If you've got that right, then you've got to deliver on it. If you've got a perfect feasibility, you know it's going to be great and profitable, the project looks wonderful, then you've got to execute on it, because unless you execute in the real world, then you've got nothing. But it all starts, in my belief, my firm conviction, on feasibilities. And I know that was mentioned earlier today, with the information you get through the club, you can have the opportunity to do reverse feasos. So everyone's aware what reverse feasos are. I've spent a fair portion of my life doing reverse feasos. And what I mean by that is, do you ever feel that you might be driving around the suburbs and you come across a project and you just think, man, I'd love to understand how that goes together, how much money they're making, all the different components to it. Well, doing a reverse feaso is not that difficult. In fact, feasos, in and of themselves, are not that difficult. They may be complex, but when you break it down, a lot of it's common sense. And essentially, what we're talking about is any project that you undertake has got a certain amount of cost associated with it. That's fair enough, isn't it? Now you can, to a large extent, certainly in property, you can make a very close estimate of what those costs are going to be. You can't budget for time, exactly like Kevin said. You can make estimates for them, and then it's a matter of managing that stuff so that you bring the project in on time, or otherwise interest can absolutely kill you. But you can forecast your costs very accurately, and why not? That's the skill about being confident with your FISO is in just through practice and just understanding and having some wisdom and experience of yourself or others as to what those costs really mean at the end of the day. And so when you've got a cost base here, and if we're hoping to sell, how does this work? If this is our selling price, SP, and this is our costs over here, then there is a margin between our selling cost, our selling price and our cost, and that is effectively called our profit. So our profit sits in the middle here, a big fat profit, hopefully. Our profit sits in the middle, and the intention is obviously to maximise that. And you've heard some great examples already of high profit projects, high margin projects. I can tell you when you come to projects where commercial funding and a bank is being involved, then the bank is very, very interested in understanding if they're going to get their money back and when they're going to get it back. So you have to be able to demonstrate to them that the project is profitable. If you've got a skinny profit, if you're undertaking a large development and you've got a skinny profit, who would be enthusiastic at backing that with their money? As opposed to a big project that's got a massive profit over this side. Of course, you and I and the banks are going to fund something where there's a greater chance that they'll get all their money back with interest. And feasibility is really, that's where it comes out. You've got to be a master of your feasibility, whether we're talking about a splitter block, whether we're talking about a duplex, whether we're talking about 6 units here, there, whatever, one single house. You've got to know your numbers. This is where you've got to do the work and do those reverse feasos and build up an expertise and intelligence around this area, or else you ain't got nothing. You can't start. And you're not going to start with confidence. If you fly by the seat of your pants and you want to do that and that's the way you live, fine. But if you want confidence, and let's be honest, the majority of what we do in life, you've got a lot more joy and happiness and productivity when you are confident about what you're doing, whether that's doing fesos, whether that's selling things, whether that's doing engineering calculations, whatever it is. We need confidence, and that comes through demonstration and repetition and things like that. So to me, feasibility is critical to the development process, and really to me, the development process is very much a process a little bit like this. Now, I took a photo here. That's Kevin. There, you'll see Kevin there. And he's conducting away. He's conducting the orchestra. He's got all the different parts of the orchestra there. They're all experts. You've got the violinist here, you've got the cellist here, you've got the various other experts in their field, and the conductor is there making sure they're all doing their part. And the different parts in a development process, and even in the design stage, are all these characters. Now there's a whole bunch of different people, and that's not embellished. That is actually the cross-section of people that you are involved just in the initial stages of a property development, similar to what you're going to see on Sunday at my project. These are all the people I have to consult with and get them all. So they're like all the different members of the orchestra, and they all want to. What they want to do is operate. Generally, they often want to operate in their own little element. You know, they're a separate silo. They think they are. My job is, as a development manager, is to come along and try and get them playing like a symphony. That's the challenge, but for me, that's where the joy is, and that's where the juice is in what I do. When we're talking about developments, as I mentioned, feasibility is really where it's at, and it's really where the money's at. So I'll just briefly cover a couple of things about getting on top of your FISO so that you've got the confidence to be able to really nail that part. And as I mentioned earlier, the feasibility is relevant to any sort of project you do. And these are all property projects, but it can be just a small little cottage. It can be a subdivision It can be a multi-unit development, or it could be a big house, or it could be the Burj Khalifa like this, the tallest building in the world. They all start really using the same principles. Really, when you break it down, it's no more complex than that. And I often find that going through my feasibility is a whole lot of simple parts put together, and it can look like quite a complex process, but in fact, it's a whole bunch of fairly simple, straightforward, logical steps that you break down, you punch them all together, and then you come up with some sort of analysis on what the profitability of the project. Because let's face it, unless we've got stacks of cash, and you're happy to use that, you might have stacks of cash, but you're still preferring to use bank money because it's cheap at the moment. But the banks do love their money, there's no question about that. I don't have to convince anyone of that. The margin that we spoke about here, the profit margin, is a measure of risk. As I said, if that gets bigger and bigger and bigger, then the banks are going to have a different attitude to whether that's really skinny. At the moment in Australia, and it's probably toughened since this, but if you can't demonstrate something of a project similar to what I did in commercial funding, if you can't demonstrate that you've got at least an 18% margin on the cost, then see you later. See you boys. Go out. Don't go to the big 5 banks here, or big 4 banks. Go to a second tier funder that will charge you a higher interest rate, because the interest rate will be a reflection of the risk that they have to take. Because if the margins are skinny, it's a higher risk, and you'll be paying a higher rate of interest to protect the lender of the money in case you default. In some ways, once you're through and once you're progressing through that phase of bank analysis and looking at banking, or the banks looking at lending you money, then as I said, they're very, very keen to get their money back. They're very highly motivated to get it back, don't you worry. They will send out a quantity surveyor who will go through your feasibility, and he'll check, are all these costs, are they actually real? Are they accurate? Or is this guy dreaming? Or is he putting some dodgy figures in? Are his selling prices and his expectation of how much he's going to sell these for in the current market, are they realistic? The quantity surveyor will go through and produce a report that then is given to the bank, where the bank can then read that and say, we've had an independent review of what you think your project's about and how risky you're projecting to us the project is, and we'll approve the funding, or we won't approve the funding based on the quantity surveyor's report. So once you're through that phase, the project's then gone through a couple of different levels of scrutiny and due diligence, if you like. Once you're through that, then that demonstrates to them, to the bank, it also demonstrates to us that, hey, we're on the right track here. Because I tell you what, if you're going for big 4 bank funding in this market, and Brisbane is, there's some elements of the Brisbane market that are hellishly scary at the moment. Two-bedroom units, for example. You drive anywhere through Brisbane and you'll count the number of tower cranes. It's extraordinary what's going on here. And there'll be troubles ahead because of the oversupply. So if a bank is supporting your project, then they are comfortable that you are going to be able to sell that product and get out of it, and they can get their money and you get your bit as well. So as I said, the feasibility itself, this is a look at my own feasibility, and that is actually the feasibility for Lux Anley. Now, I believe
we just handed that out.
Have we? No, it's on. Okay. Yep. Oh, right. Okay. Yep. So that I was going to say, I'll give you a few minutes and you can write all those lines down.
Oh no, we went one better.
Yeah. So what you've been handed out now is bring that along on Sunday, because they're the real costs. Now, I appreciate if you don't go sharing this and go posting it all over the place and sending it around. That feasibility, that format is what I've nutted out myself. I have programs to run that sort of stuff and check things, but I prefer to do something where I can actually have a real good feeling for it. That's how much I am sold on this aspect as being so critical. But all the different cost centres there, you can go and measure them, or can get a pretty good accurate estimate of those different elements. And that's a feasibility. It may look, is anyone a bit daunted by that? Is it a bit scary? I mean, it looks like there's a lot of stuff on that page. And I accept that, I understand that, but really when you break it down, each one of those items can be grouped And you can get a level of confidence that what is in those numbers actually is realistic. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that our estimates of what we're forecasting for costs, particularly on the cost side, are realistic, and that we're not dreaming. If we think, as I've said there, if I've got a price in there for building certification, for example, of 10 grand, and then I've got an architect there at 35 grand. Now, in reality, would you like me to tell you exactly what those two elements cost me?
Yes.
Okay, so the architecture cost me 40 grand or a bit more, and the building certification's probably cost me about 6 grand. So I've saved 4 grand there, and I've spent 5 grand more, so I'm pretty close, okay? I know that I'm pretty much on budget with my consultants overall, even though we've had many, many different issues to deal with, and that has led to a continuous stream of invoices from these different consultants. They have a habit of doing that, and that's fair enough too. But it's all budgeted for. I'm pretty comfortable. I'm sleeping beautifully. I sleep never a sleepless night. So I guess the thing I'd like to impress upon you, that a feasibility may look scary, but get used to it. If you want to do any project and actually build your wealth, then you need to get across your numbers and be confident in them. It's all about confidence. It's all about confidence. And the way you get it, you can borrow it from people like me. You can borrow it from people like Ken. You can do your own, you've got to do some work. You can do reverse physios. You can build that confidence and that experience level courtesy of other people's experience, good and bad experience, I might add, that can really assist you on your way. So we can go through that in detail on Sunday, so bring along those sheets. And particularly bring along the reverse side is the site plan of the job, and I'll bring a highlighter on Sunday because I want to just point out a couple of things to mark up on that plan. So a little bit of homework, check out the feasibility, bring a highlighter, and bring closed shoes as well, please. Closed as in, not your salsa dancing shoes that you'll be wearing on Saturday night. Bring your, you don't need to bring work boots, just something that's closed so you don't kick a piece of reinforcement or something. So I've spent a number of time now. Yes, thanks, Kevin. Yep. I've got a bit of experience. I've been around the traps. I love this field. I've spent 2 years out doing investment banking. I love that. I love money. I love making money. And what that did, that experience was, in a totally different manner, just gave me more input into understanding how numbers work, percentages work, and getting more and more confident with dealing with numbers. And so my this field of building construction is where I'm going to be. Come back. I'll see you in 20 years. I'll still be here. I'll be doing this same sort of thing because this is the area I was built for. I've been in here my whole career. I've had some great experiences. I've developed some good experience, but I love the field and I love working with the people I do. So what I decided to do was, because I think I've got something to offer, I constructed a course, a half-day course that I'm doing in February next year. I'm going to run it in you're getting some handouts now explaining that, but I'm going to run that in Brisbane, Gold Coast, Sydney and Melbourne. So the Brisbane one's going to be on the 11th of February. And the thing that you will come out of that, if you jump in that with me, it's $49, okay? To come for half a day and spend it with me. But the whole intention of that is to master your feasibility. I want you coming out where your level of confidence in your ability to know your feasibility and just know it, I call it, know it right down in your, men, right down in your, right down there, right down there. You've got to know it right down there and be unshakable. You can't afford to undertake a project where you're putting your money in and you're just unconfident and then you're not sleeping at night. That's crazy. I'll be able to teach you that. I know I can teach you that. How to have great confidence in what you're doing in terms of your feasibility. How to know that you've got it right. How to develop, manage like a pro. I'll cover that briefly. And as I said, I've got that. I reckon that's worth. How much is that worth? If I ask Ken, where is Ken around? You might
No, he's gone for the day.
Ken's gone, but if Ken was here, Ken spoke to me about his experience. If I said, Ken, you're on top of building, developing, you know all that stuff. How much has that knowledge been worth to you in your career? Well, it's worth millions of dollars, isn't it? It's clear that it's worth millions of dollars. I would say the same. It's been worth millions of dollars to me. I'm happy to teach that and charge you $50. So
is there a way, with our students there in places like Perth and Adelaide and New South Wales, if we tried to get together more for a time when they're actually in a course,
yes,
that they could tie that in?
I would think so.
Is that a better idea, where we know you're in town? So is it possible to change that date for our specialist group?
Yes, we could do that. Yeah,
Because
for
it's
sure.
going to cost them, like $49 is great value, but the
Yes.
1,200 to fly here and accommodate.
Agreed. Sure. Yep.
Okay, good.
So that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm here on the planet for, actually. That's what I'm here on the planet for, is to live my life. I'm having a great life. Very, very thankful for every day I've got. The people I relate to, and I'm just having a ball. So I've got something to give. This is part of it. There's other bits as well. Come and join me if you wish. Fill in those forms. The forms is the general kind of information form, so we can keep in touch. And certainly fill out the payment bit if you want to come, and I'll see you at the back as you leave, perhaps, and leave after this session or whenever that is, lunchtime, and I'll grab them from you, and I'll be around to answer any questions, and certainly can answer them on Sunday and during that day as well. So thank you very much.
So David's role is to make feasibility exciting. Now, to me, feasibility is less exciting than tax law. So to actually devote your life to something that is what is considered dull for some. He actually makes feasibility sheets look exciting. He adds love and colour to them. And I've seen him do dances when he gets his feasos, so beautiful. He pores over them for hours and goes, that's going to work. And when he says a number, that number is the number. So what are they going to walk into on Sunday? Doors, rooms?
Yeah, virtually completed product.
Right.
We've got 4 blocks of buildings there. The ones facing the street were the last one. The site was as tight as a...
Fisher's House.
Yeah, one of them.
Yes. That's watertight.
I tell you what, go have a look at that. Have a look at the time-lapse video, because you'll see then when we got scaffold up, there was nowhere to move. So I can explain this more on the site, but there was nowhere to move. So we had to build the job from the back, 4 blocks. 2 in the front, 2 behind them. We had to build it from the back, finish those, pull that scaffold down, then move forward.
How big was the block?
The two 750 square metre blocks.
So 1,500 square metres, you put 8 things on that?
11.
11. And how many pre-sold land?
I've sold 7.
7.
Yeah.
And you wanted to keep one, I think.
I was going to keep one. I've decided to sell it.
Yeah, I know. What can you say?
Life happens there. Well, I'm getting, thank you, to Kevin. The 2 I was going to keep are the 2 that it's just keep this between ourselves here.
Yeah.
We're not joint venturing on that aspect. Where I've added another 80 grand. I'm selling those for $80,000 to $90,000 more than the ones next to them, because I whacked in that media room. Thank you for the inspiration.
Called a media room. So, what have you done with that media room? You turned it into another unit, really.
So the media room is on plan, approved, no problems. It's got its own. It's got its own entrance. It's got its own car park. It's got a deck as you walk in.
Yeah, lovely media room.
And that's it.
Little kitchenette.
No, sorry. Yeah, it's about 45 square metres. So it's got a kitchenette. It's got its own bathroom. I wanted putting a wall bed in that.
Yeah,
you may have talked about. Perfect solution.
Well, you get tired in the media room. You need to rest.
That's right.
So it's a very. You'll love the media room. So are you getting the